So I'm sure you've heard the saying, communication is key, which it is. It's a huge key to successful relationships. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't experience healthy, great communication in their relationships, as well as, unfortunately, a lot of women experience dealing with a man who either is struggling to open up, or more specifically, what we're going to cover today, he shuts down at some point in the relationship. So maybe he was a little bit more communicated, more open to communicate, right? And it wasn't that much of an issue, but something happens, he shuts down. And so for a lot of women, navigating that can be difficult, can be frustrating, can be hurtful. And if not handled properly, can contribute to things going or continuing to go in the wrong direction, okay? So I felt it was important to create a video to help you understand what you should do when he shuts down. Now, if you're not in a relationship, this is information for you to learn so that you're prepared if this moment ever comes. And if you are in it, and maybe you're dealing with it, this will help you address the issue right away. So before we get to the first point, I want to pause for a moment because June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And this topic that we're discussing couldn't be more relevant, right? We're talking about men shutting down and pulling away, going silent, struggling with expressing their emotions. A lot of times we don't express or discuss why they do this, what's at the root of it. And for so many men, they're taught how to just move past how they feel, suck it up, bottle it up, right? How expressing of feelings can be weakness. And so it leads to a lot of men just suppressing and suppressing and suppressing. Like I can say for me, there was a time where I bottled a lot of stuff in, and it led to me having a more negative energy that I carried with me. And it wasn't until I was challenged in college to see a counselor because I had a mental breakdown, like serious talk. I was driving on the highway, almost got in a car accident, had to pull over to the side, and I completely broke down. And it's a long story, but eventually I went to a counselor, and that really opened my eyes and helped me understand how, like, okay, you can't be suppressing these things. You got to let it out. It's important to get the right avenue to vent and let things out. And that's why I'm so thankful to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. BetterHelp matches you with a licensed therapist based on your needs, someone who can help support you through what you're going through and provide the kind of support you're looking for. They offer professional, licensed therapy online in a way that's convenient and designed to meet you where you are. To get started, fill out a questionnaire and you will match with a professional therapist in as little as a couple days. You can easily switch therapists anytime at no cost if it's not the right fit. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.3 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. And if you're someone who loves a man, whether it's your partner, your father, your brother, or your son, this is your reminder to check in, to encourage the conversation, to make space for it, because sometimes knowing that someone cares enough to ask is what makes all the difference. So if you or someone you care about is going through it, visit betterhelp.com/Stefan Speaks or click the link in the description to get 10% off your first month. You don't have to keep it all in. You just have to be willing to start. Let's get into it. And one of the first things to do when a man emotionally shuts down is to encourage, not pressure. Okay? So let me start off by saying this. I said encourage, not pressure, but let me also add, do not make the issue all about you. So the reason I had to start with that part is because there's a lot of situations where, let's say man and woman, they're dating or even married, and something happens. And let's just say he comes home one day and he's just distant and he just shuts down and he doesn't want to talk, right? And so there's a lot of times for a lot of women, where the assumption will go straight to, does he have a problem with you? Does he have a problem with me? What did I do to you? What's the problem, right? And because of this concern and worry that it's something about you and internalizing that, there becomes now this pressure to, I need you to talk, you need to tell me what's going on, and even frustration, right, and negativity coming out of that woman because of her concern that it has something to do with her. And she wants to clear her name or know what's going on here so we can be done with this and move forward. Or even her feeling like, okay, is this a sign of he doesn't love me anymore? Is he thinking about leaving me? All these different things can run through a woman's head. And now what happens is her fears and concerns make her or lead her into making this about her and not really about him anymore, which also leads to the adding of pressure and the pushing and the pulling, which isn't going to help. So you have to make sure that when the man shuts down, don't automatically think it's about you. Now, listen, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. Are there going to be some situations where him shutting down had something directly to do with you? That can exist. But there is no point in jumping to that conclusion in a way that's going to cause us to handle this in an unhealthy manner, okay? Better to go with the idea of maybe it's something that has nothing to do with you. That way, you can remain more calm and collected in trying to address things with him. But as I said, do not pressure, encourage. So if you see something's bothering him, if he sees he's shut down, right? He's not opening up to you. Just say to him, hey, I'm here for you. If you want to talk about it, let me know. I got you. I love you. And at that point, don't react then by remaining distant. Because I think what happens in many cases is that the woman feels like, oh, well, since he doesn't want to talk, let me just leave him alone. Okay? Now, there are some scenarios, again, where the man's like, yo, just give me some space right now. I just need some time to myself. Okay, if that's the case, cool. But when he doesn't say that, don't assume that you can't still love on him. It's just don't make it about, we got to talk about things right then and right now. Like, all right, still do the things that pour into him. Still do the things that make him feel good. And we're going to get a little bit more into that later. But don't stop being his partner. Okay, just because this one area is now kind of left in limbo, so to speak. So focus on this encouraging, letting him know you're there for him, but do not pressure. Now, I understand some of you may feel like, well, Stefan, if we can't just never talk about it, and if I don't apply some pressure, he may never open up. So there's nothing wrong with saying, okay, and this is why I think it's important for couples to discuss in advance structure to how we handle these types of moments. Structure like, all right, what's the agreed upon time frame that we give each other as a time limit before we've got to sit down and talk about this? So if let's say, for example, a couple says, all right, you get 7 days. 7 days if you need your space. And some of y'all might be like, 7 days is way too much. I'm not here to say how many days it should be. I'm just saying if two people agree to 7 days, all right, cool. And now we know by day 8, all right, there's no more, oh, we're not going to talk about this. This is what we agreed to. But if there's not an agreed upon structure, it can be hard to navigate sometimes. So I do think there's nothing wrong with occasionally, again, checking in. So if you ask him today, yo, you want to talk about it? He's like, no, I'm good. Nothing wrong with a couple of days later, hey, I really would love for us to still discuss, what happened, help me understand, or whatever the case may be, and still explore things. I also think that, I know, understand there's a difference between a relationship where the man never was open to communication with you versus the man who was, but now he shut down, okay? Some of you have to recognize that you may be dealing with a man who has no intentions of being more open and transparent with you. If he never was, it's kind of weird to then think he's going to automatically do it now, right? And then I have to ask you, well, why are you still with a man that doesn't give you that if that's important to you? But for the man who once was and now he's shut down, to me, that means we can get back to where it used to be. And we just got to get back to doing the things that nurtured that environment and that relationship early on that maybe we've allowed to fall to the wayside. All right, so moving things along, the next point or the next thing to do, which builds on what we just talked about with the not pressuring but encouraging, is if a man shuts down emotionally, write him a letter. Okay? Now, if you follow me, if you watch many of my videos, and you know I'm always encouraging you guys to write letters. Letters are very powerful, effective methods of communication, especially and specifically for when we are expressing or discussing deep concerns, issues, feelings, and so forth. And one of the big reasons why is because verbal communication of these things can tend to go the wrong way or not hit the way that it needs to, because people get defensive, people deflect, people are listening to rebuttal, people get distracted. You may forget certain things, right? All these different things can happen that can not allow the verbal communication to be as good as it should have been. However, via a letter solves all those things. When you write a letter and that person reads it, remember I said they listen to rebuttal? People read to process. All right? So they take it in more. They're more likely to understand because they can reread it also a few times to help them grasp it better. So it sits with them, it resonates with them more, okay? It also allows you, one of the things I didn't mention was in verbal conversations, we may not realize how maybe our anxiety, frustration, anger, whatever is coming out of us, even though we think we're talking calmly, right? And our energy is attacking the person, which causes them to shut down even more. Or it may be what contributed to them shutting down to begin with. So the letter allows us to account for proper tone, make sure we're communicating in a more effective, loving, calm manner. You know, it eliminates that attack, or it helps to diminish the attacking energy potentially that you might give off, okay? As well as it goes back to that, it's less pressuring. In the moment conversation can be very overwhelming, can feel like a lot of pressure to somebody. And I'm sure you've experienced it as well. But a letter is a lot more relaxed because they get to read it on their time, they get to think, and then they get to sit with you and discuss or rewrite a letter to you, whatever the case may be. So it's easier for people to embrace doing a letter. So, excuse me, letters are very, very effective. Now, you know, some people might say, well, how do I know he's even going to read the letter? And I always joke like, listen, he's going to read it. Everyone reads the letter. Y'all all read it because you're all nosy, okay? And if someone writes you a letter, you want to know what's in it. So it's very unlikely, not impossible, but very unlikely for that person, for your partner, to not read a letter that you wrote them, okay? So don't worry about that part. And again, you guys will have an opportunity to discuss things verbally after the fact, but it'll be a much smoother, or it can be a much smoother discussion because we have the foundation of the letter to reference and build off of, all right? So consider that, and again, I have to remind you, in that letter, again, when you're trying to talk to a man who you feel has shut down, don't make it about you. I really have to stress that. You have to just make it about focusing on him, his feelings, where he's coming from, what's going on. Yes, you can say, hey, if there's anything that I did or I could do better that will help, let me know. But you just don't want to make it about, you know, why I don't understand why you can't talk to me. You always make me feel devalued. And it's not that if you have those feelings resonating with you, that we can't address at some point. But trying to address it while trying to address him shutting down is like, this ain't the time right now. We got to focus on him, and then we can talk about the other stuff as well. All right. So Another important thing you should do right away when a man emotionally shuts down is do things that make him happy. Okay? So I mentioned it in the first point. So let's dive into it a little bit more. Again, in many scenarios, man's not communicating, he's shut down. Woman many times may take, whether taking it personally, taking offense to it, whatever the case may be, or even in trying to respect his space, right? She backs off. But in backing off, she's no longer pouring into him in other ways. And to some of your surprise, some men are shutting down because they feel neglected by their partner. All right? I say it jokingly, but I'm not joking. I'm not joking, but I am, I guess. Either way, like, there's so many women who feel like men don't have feelings. And it's like, yo, like, we may laugh at that sometimes, but it's really not funny in the sense that, we have to understand men hurt too, men care too, men want to feel desired too, men want to feel loved too, right? There's a lot of men in relationships, in marriages right now, feeling underappreciated, feeling undesired, feeling not respected by their wife. And these things can lead to a shutdown, right? And what may have, if it seems to have come out of nowhere, it's not that it came out of nowhere. It's been building up for a long time. And then something that day or the day before may have triggered or pushed him completely over the edge to where he's like, I'm over this. I'm done. Okay? But all that to say, if you now take an approach that's like, all right, I'm just going to leave him be, you're only adding more fuel to the fire, right? So it's like, listen, if we want him to open up, what helps someone be more open is feeling better, So let's focus on the things that, maybe it's cooking them that meal. And I know some of y'all are like, ready to throw your shoe at me. Like, I ain't doing all that. Listen, if you're here to get the best chance of getting a positive result, then you got to be open to some of these things, to all of these things, okay? So whether that be making sure he's well fed, whether that be showing him some desire, affection, I'm going to say it, some of y'all may not like it, initiating some sex. For at least for those of you who are married, okay? Ask yourself, when's the last time you initiated? Not you were willing to do it with him, which bravo for your willingness to take one for the team and engage with him, right? But that, we need more. When's the last time you initiated? Okay, that matters. That's important for a lot of guys. So doing those things and pouring into him can bring about a happiness that then starts to open him up. It softens him up. It brings the walls down, okay? And now he may be more willing, because now if the issue is he feels unloved, feeling loved will open him back up, okay? Now, I just want y'all to understand, I don't tell y'all these things to make it seem like it's all on you, right? But again, I have to speak. If I'm speaking to you, then I have to empower you with the tools to get the best results. If I was speaking to him, then I would be giving him advice to try to help pull him out of that mode and how to properly address things. But for you, it's about what can you do to give you the best chance at getting the best results. And that's why I'm laying out for you with these things, and as I will continue with the remainder of this list. All right. So as we continue, the next important thing you need to do right away when a man emotionally shuts down is make sure you're being very open and transparent. And I'm going to use the word vulnerable with him. Okay? Now, let me kind of backtrack a little bit. I use the word vulnerable just to emphasize being open, right, and transparent. I don't want you to take vulnerable as a way to say, all right, well then if I'm going to be vulnerable, I'm going to dump all these emotions I'm feeling right now onto him, right? Because again, that can overwhelm him. And for a man, we have to understand, and I probably should have said this from the very beginning of the video. We have to understand that the average man is not raised to be as in tune with his emotions, to be as expressive about his emotions, okay? So it is not as second nature to him as it may be to the average woman, all right, or to a lot more women. And so there is a process of, there maybe a little bit more grace has to be given, because there's a difference between the guy who just does not care about you and is not going to open up, whatever, and it's a completely unhealthy situation, and the man who makes an effort, but yes, in certain moments he may struggle more than maybe you would with the same scenario, okay? So with that said, you also have to understand that what you're trying to pull out of him, you have to make sure you're pouring in as well. And that's where we get to the being transparent and honest, because I see a lot of scenarios, relationships, marriages, where the wife is complaining or taking issue with the fact that he's not opening up, that he's shut down. But then when we talk about her being open with him, it's like we find that she's doing the same things. And she may try to validate it by saying, well, I've tried to be open with him before, but he doesn't listen to me. Okay, I hear you, but if you now shut down, how do you expect him to open up? You know what I'm saying? Like, it can't work that way. You got to be engaging in these things too. And this is why, again, it's so important, in my opinion, for there to be structure when it comes to these types of things. That's why I think doing what I call a relationship checkup, which is like it could be every month, every 3 months, every half a year, whatever. We have a designated time where we sit down, we discuss things, we get everything on the table. You know, we discuss what we like, what we don't like, what needs to be better. You know, we're making sure we stay on top of things, because a lot of relationships, what happens is discussions aren't had and things linger and drag on. And by the time two people are talking, even though they have a specific issue in front of them that has created conflict, it's being fueled by all the unaddressed conflicts, by all the unaddressed feelings and issues that we've been bottling up the whole time. So again, we have to make sure we're doing our due diligence to make sure we're not letting things linger. And then what happens is it makes it 10 times easier to then handle the current situation. Not to mention, the current situation would not be as bad as it is had we kept cleaning up things from before then. All right? A lot of couples don't realize their issue in this moment and struggle is, at this moment, they annoy each other. At this moment, they don't like each other. And again, that's because of the piling up of issues all this time that have not been corrected or addressed. So create that structure, be open, be transparent. You can't hold back. You can't say, well, if he's going to shut down, I'm going to shut down too. Two wrongs don't make a right, okay? They do not make a right. Do your part, and that will help in getting things back on track. All right, so we got a couple more to go, and this one I think is a really big one. Another important thing you need to do right away when a man shuts down emotionally is not allow your emotions to override his logic. Let me explain. So there's a viral clip I have where I did an interview with Anthony O'Neill. And in the clip, I was talking about how men have to not essentially let their logic override a woman's emotions. So the example was like, essentially, let's say men and women are walking down the street. Everything to the man seems safe and okay. And the woman's like, you know what? I don't feel good about this right now. I think we need to leave, right? Something is hitting her. Something is her intuition feeling. And for a lot of men, if however she's feeling in that moment doesn't line up with their logic, they can easily be very dismissive. Like, oh, you're tripping. You're crazy. You know, not considering, listen, this is how she feels. And she feels like this for a reason. You have to meet her where she's at. Even if you think maybe she's just having a bad reaction, okay, you got to kind of go to where she is and then lead her out of that safely and with love, And that way you'll have a very peaceful resolution. But what happens in many cases is dismissive, it's devaluing, it's the overriding of her feelings with his logic because what she's saying does not make sense to him. Well, the same thing can happen in reverse, where you'll have issues where, all right, in a moment where, and again, it's always important to understand what's the foundation we're starting at. Meaning, okay, in that example I gave with the two people walking down the street, once she raises the issue, it's like, all right, then we have to meet her where she's at. So on the flip side, if he expressed his concern, if he expressed how he sees things, right? First, you can't come in and, or you shouldn't come in and override that with how you feel, okay? You have to meet him with where he's at his logic. You have to help walk him through that to get him to where also if what you're sensing or picking up on, intuition, whatever, you feel is either a valuable piece of the puzzle here or something he has to look at for a very important reason, whatever the case may be, then okay, we can try to lead him to that. But we can't dismiss, override, or neglect what he's saying, because you'll have situations where let's just say the man says, listen, I asked you to do X, Y, Z. You completely ignored me and you did what you wanted. And I felt completely disrespected by that, right? And to you, it's like, well, I feel like, I was just doing what I felt was best and I wasn't trying to disrespect you. Okay, it's not about how you feel. He told you, and very logically, he explained it. He felt disrespected. You got to acknowledge that. You got to accept that. You see what I'm saying? Now, there's nothing wrong with you saying, okay, I hear you. I apologize. My intention was not to disrespect. I just want you to know that, the way I viewed it, I thought I was just doing what was best because I felt this was the right way to handle things, but I get it. You had asked me to do something and I completely ignored what you said. I apologize. Boom. So you still can respect his logic. You can respect, and it's still his feelings as well, but you're respecting where he's coming from. You're acknowledging it, even if his view of it being disrespect does not make sense to you. It's still how he feels and how he views it and what is logical to him. And you've got to honor that. And you can still highlight and express your feelings in that, right? Without dismissing or devaluing him. So it is important because there's a lot of conflict between partners, men and women, and it's a lot of times it's that battle of emotion and logic, and they just keep butting heads rather than both sides can be embraced, right, and be respected. And we have to learn how to do that if we want to have a healthy relationship, as well as, because the point of this video is when he emotionally shuts down. If he feels like every time he tells you how he feels or how he sees things or what his logic is, you dismiss it, you devalue it, you think it's stupid, crazy, whatever the case, he's going to stop. He's going to stop. You have to make sure you are acknowledging, you are respecting, you are hearing him out if you want this man to continue to be present and open up and not have this shutting down issue occur consistently. All right. And so another thing you need to do right away when a man emotionally shuts down is do not be judgmental, okay? So there's a lot of women. One, let me say, I think a lot of women may not realize how sharp their tongue can be at times and how they can speak down on their man, right? Speak to him in a way that he feels very devalued and disrespected. Excuse me. And on top of that, there are things that you may not realize how judgmental you come across in many scenarios, in many situations. And because of that, listen, I don't care who you are, man or woman, relationship or not, people don't like opening up to judgmental people. It's really that simple, all right? You're rarely going to come across someone who's going to be as transparent as they could be with the person they view as being very judgmental. Now, Some of you may feel like, well, I'm not judgmental. I'm just keeping it real. And I'm just saying how I feel. And I'm just calling things out for what it is. Or you may say, oh, no, I'm not judgmental. He just doesn't like accountability. Listen, you can still hold people accountable. You can still be real and be honest and remove the being judgmental. You have to be mindful of that, right? You also have to understand that it kind of goes back to that whole, I think this is one of the foundational pieces of how what contributes to some people being judgmental is like the whole common sense thing. Like when someone feels like this should be common sense and you don't get it, there is judgment like you're an idiot, you're this, you're that. And it's like, listen, understand that everybody's different. People are raised differently. People have been exposed to different things. And so even though some people may know something or have the quote unquote common sense, even though common sense ain't always so common, that doesn't always lead to everyone handling things the same way, going about things the same way. And so we have to understand that when there is conflict, when there is disagreement, right? The goal should be, how do we find resolution? How do we find middle ground? How do we correct behaviors that we don't agree with? But we don't have to cast judgment, because sometimes it's not even about, like, even good people make mistakes, plain and simple. Even good people have bad moments, right? And when we understand that, we can view the moment as just that moment. Too many times when something goes wrong, when something happens, even using the whole him shutting down, there are some people who, if their man shuts down, they'll just completely label him that, oh, you see, he's just unserious, immature, all these things, rather than, no. He may be typically a very mature, serious man about you, but he is now facing a struggle for whatever reason that has pushed him into a corner and caused him to handle things in a way that he typically doesn't handle them. Because it can get the best. Even those people who know it is important to communicate, it is important to stay open and transparent with your partner, can be hit with enough life factors that might cause them to go in a direction they usually don't go in. All right? It can happen. So, bottom line is, I'll say this. Make sure, don't just wait till the moment that there's a shutdown to do an inventory on how judgmental you might be. I think that's something to take inventory of now. I think any of you, if you're, not just even asking the man, because some of you may not be in a relationship right now, asking your friends, asking your family, hey, do you think I'm a judgmental person, right? And if you are, if anyone's willing to say, and tell them, please be honest, don't be afraid, I can handle it, and I would hope you can, right? If someone tells you, yeah, you pretty much really are a judgmental person, I think it's important that you start doing some work on that. Because it's going to be hard to get, again, anyone. Think about, there are some of you who grew up in households with mothers or fathers who were extremely judgmental. And how many of you were open with them? How many times have you shut down or put walls up with your parents because you feel like you can't talk to them because they're so quick to be judgmental and talk down on you? You see what I'm saying? So we got to fix it regardless of relationship or a man shutting down. All right, now last but not least, we mentioned it already, but I just had to say it again. The next big thing to remember to do right away when a man shuts down emotionally is acknowledge his feelings, okay? No one likes to feel dismissed. No one likes to feel like they're not being heard by their partner and taken serious by their partner. And again, in verbal conversations, let's say he's expressing himself, in a situation like this where he shuts down and you as a woman may already be on edge because you're waiting to hear if he's going to say something about you or he's going to blame you or whatever the case may be, you may already be in a defensive stance or a defensive mindset. And because of that, you're not realizing that you're not acknowledging how he feels. You're just going quick to defending yourself, or you're going quick to deflecting, or whatever the case may be. And it's like, yo, all you're doing is making it more likely that the shutdown will continue or get worse. All right. So just as you would want your feelings acknowledged, you got to acknowledge his. Now, understand something. Acknowledging someone's feelings doesn't automatically mean we are agreeing with them. So if a woman says to me, I feel like you were disrespectful to me because you didn't call me for my birthday. I don't know, right? I'm just thinking something random. And the worst thing for me to do is be like, oh no, I want y'all to be just, like going straight into defending, dismissing. The first thing I should be saying is, you know what? I'm really sorry that you feel that way. I'm sorry that you feel like I was disrespectful towards that. That wasn't my intention, but I apologize for making you, for contributing to you feeling that way. You know what I'm saying? But I just want you to know that it wasn't about disrespect or anything like that for me. I simply forgot, whatever the case may be. But it starts with acknowledge first. There's nothing wrong with explaining your position. I understand it's natural to want to some degree, defend ourselves, but we can't make that the priority. The priority has to always be acknowledge how they feel. And that simply means I hear you. I understand that's how you feel. I understand that's the way you're looking at things. Okay, I get it. I just want you to understand, but this is what my intent was. This is what I was trying to say. This was what I was doing. This is how I actually saw it. But I hear you and I apologize. Boom. That's it. And when we do that, we create healthier environments. And I'm going to also add, we can call it a bonus, but I'm just going to add it right here. On top of all these things I mentioned to you guys, encouraging counseling is always good. But I always tell people, listen, you don't want to single out your partner. No one likes to be told they're the one with the issue, right? Nobody wants to be told, oh, you need to go to counseling. You got problems. You got issues. It's always better to be like, hey, let's do counseling, right? Even if that just means we both go to our individual counselors to both make sure we're addressing our issues from within. Even if you just think it's only his issue. Listen, you might be surprised. Like a lot of people feel like there's nothing wrong with them, but if they went to a therapist, coach, whatever, they might find out, oh, you do have some stuff you need to clean up. Nothing wrong with that. That's for most people. Okay, but it also shows your partner you're going on that journey with them. And then you guys can also do eventually sessions together as well. So, be mindful of that, be respectful, be loving, and understand that moments like this, when a man shuts down, are, if you're dealing with the right person, it's a moment that can be conquered. All right. So take your best approach, put God first, include God in the process, and that will make it even better. Thank you for watching this video. I pray it was helpful to you. Be sure to watch this one over here on men respond differently to women with D7 mindsets. And to him, and that affects him emotionally, and that's going to be very beneficial for any potential relationship or even the ability to attract better men.